brands looking right now how to improve that customer experience? So you brought some examples, but still so many other brands that outside of maybe retail world.
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
they
So
still testing the waters. Uh-huh.
yeah, so another example is a lot of brands now are beginning to file for trademark protection in the metaverse. And so that's enabling them to position to be able to deliver digital experiences. So one example is McDonald's. They filed for trademark protections in the metaverse, and there's speculation that they're going to have stores there, right? You can drop into a McDonald's virtually. And then, because of the way that logistics have built up over the last decade, you can actually have that virtual visit translate into actual physical delivery of a hamburger at your house. So we're going to see this online, offline, real life, and kind of metaverse and Web3 kind of applications blend together in all sorts of interesting ways.
Inevitably. Inevitably. You know what? I am so privileged to speak with a lot of leaders, lots of bright people in the industry these days. And metaverse comes out in every conversation. You start talking about talent, you start talking about future of work, automation, artificial intelligence, metaverse is right there. All right. So this is amazing. It's unfolding in front of our eyes. And yet we have a lot of questions. So why don't we connect, Peter, this for business leaders? Because this talk is for those who define strategies, who plan the company's growth. So metaverse and Web3, where some of the traditional industries can find their ground, you think?
So, wow, that's a big question. But a project that I've been following recently, which is pretty interesting and exciting, is they're bringing back the DeLorean car. I don't know if you remember the DeLorean, right? Very famous car that was built way back in the 1970s. So it's been 40 years since that car was manufactured. They're bringing it back, but this time, in order to get that car, you actually have to buy an NFT. And that NFT gives you basically a slot in the production of that vehicle. So let's say you get access to that NFT, and that NFT may be 310. That means that you will get the 310th car that comes off the assembly line when that car is produced in 2024. So the car hasn't been made yet. There's a prototype that they just unveiled last month, actually, in Pebble Beach. There's going to be a marketplace, i.e. a platform, in which people can get access to the NFTs. That's going to be opened in October. And then people who want to keep it can hold that NFT. But if you decide to sell it, there's going to be a marketplace in which you can put your NFT up for sale. And that means somebody else can come in and potentially buy your slot in the production of the vehicle. Now it gets even more interesting because DeLorean is a famous, iconic car. And if you can remember the famous movie Back to the Future, and there have been lots of derivative kind of assets, both physical but also digital. So there are a number of DeLorean games. So you can imagine that DeLorean is going to create an avatar of the vehicle. So not only will you potentially get a physical car, but you also may get an avatar or a digital rendering of that car that can then be brought into games in the metaverse. And so that becomes another way to engage fans, but also to generate a revenue stream for the company launching it. It's called the DeLorean Motor Company. And so there's lots of ways that you can have combinations of physical assets and digital assets to engage and generate revenue for your company.
That sounds all wonderful, Peter. Absolutely. And I'm looking at your article right now. You are a very prolific writer on Cointelegraph. Okay. I don't know if you recall that you posted article there this year about rising demand for Web3 savvy data analysts. So I want to turn this conversation a little bit in how
Sure.
companies should plan their strategies around talent, because those are specialists, they're hard to find. You know, everyone's just learning right now.
That is definitely true. And helped a startup. I was the chief platform officer for a startup in the NFT space. And what became very clear is that because it's new, it's very difficult to match supply and demand. You don't know how many NFTs to produce. You don't know exactly what the demand is going to be. So gathering and analyzing the data related to these drops or auctions becomes very important. And that's where data analysts can be very helpful. There's conversion, right? There are what do you call it? The crypto passionate people, but they're a pretty small group. The question is how do you catch the broader audience? And it could be sports fans, it could be music fans, it can be fashion fans. It depends on the groups. But right now we have this core group that's very interested in this space and very knowledgeable. But then you have the broader public, and a big challenge is how do you convert and get mass adoption? And so having a good data analyst can really help figure out how to target promotions and what those conversion rates are, so that you have a good idea of where to spend your resources to attract people to your platform and to your NFT projects and collections.
Yep. And of course, the knowledge the organization has or people have about digital transformation, I would say the closest roles to those data analysts that will help companies with Web3 will be their in-house talent. You mentioned analysts. I would put even marketeers, okay? I would put those who used to look at your marketing performance at a lot of tools, okay? Those will be able to analyze and help you with your Web3 venture, don't you think?
Yeah. And so finding people that have marketing skills, right? That's not so difficult, but people who understand marketing in the Web3 context, that is harder. And so, companies are looking now, but there's been actually quite a number of companies that have popped up that specialize in this space. I call them NFT platform solution providers. And so typically brands don't build their own platforms. What they do is they rely on third parties that have begun to specialize in this space. And there are trade-offs, associated with that. You don't want to give all your data and all of your community engagement to a third party. So brands need to think strategically about what makes sense to outsource to a third party and what you need to keep as core to your business.